She sat in the corner of the room where the glow of the lights could not reach her. The dance hall was lively, and the couples moved slowly to the rhythm of the soft melodies of the band. She sipped on a cool glass of wine, her dark brown eyes trying to avoid the passing gaze of single men. Emily was certainly a lovely sight to behold, with her slender face, long blue dress and low-cut blouse. She had originally felt uneasy wearing something so revealing, but her friend had convinced her otherwise. "You look absolutely stunning, Emily," her friend Amber had exclaimed earlier in the evening. "Thanks, but I'm just not sure Edwin would approve," Emily answered as she tried to pull the low-cut top further up her chest. "It's a bit revealing for an engaged woman, isn't it?" "Oh, don't be so self-critical," Amber said as she tossed her long dark hair behind her. "You're engaged, not detained. I'm sure Edwin would be thrilled to see his bride-to-be in such a radiant glow. After all, it is your birthday." Emily straightened her bun of auburn-coloured hair, looking herself up and down in the mirror of the bedroom with the eye of a critic. Her friend Amber was quite beautiful, especially tonight, and was wearing a red dress that cut off above the knees. The girl wasn't afraid of not being modest in society, and she loved the attention of the men, but Amber wasn't the one who was engaged and to be married. "Yes," Emily said, "it is my birthday, but I wish I could spend it with Edwin, instead of frolicking around at some dance hall." She spun on her heels and faced Amber directly. "And don't expect me to drink much either. I need to remain proper for Edwin's sake." Amber shot her dazzling dark eyes at her friend. "Edwin would want you to enjoy yourself, Emily. You only turned 23 once, and he's over in France to make sure the Huns aren't going to make you speak German before you turn 24. "I know," Emily said. "It just doesn't feel right going out and celebrating while he could be getting shot in a trench. I feel horrible about it." Amber rose up slowly, went up to her friend and wrapped her slender arms around her. "Emily, it's 1918 and you're 23 years old now. You've been controlled by your parents your whole life. Edwin is a great man, a real gentleman, but he wouldn't be happy knowing that you skipped your birthday because you were worried about him." Emily stared into her friend's comforting eyes. "Listen, if you don't want to dance with anyone tonight, then don't, but at least come out and have some fun. Edwin wouldn't like knowing you skipped out on your birthday so you could sit in this lonely apartment and listen to war news on the radio." Emily took a deep breath and slumped her thin shoulders. "Okay," she whispered to Amber. "I'll go. I'm not going to dance, but I can at least have a drink or two." Amber smiled happily. "A drink, or two, or 10. The tab's on me tonight, girl, and we're going to have some fun, men or no men." The two girls laughed and smiled, and Emily finished getting ready. The evening had passed rather quickly, and Amber had danced across the floor with at least 3 different men. Emily was on her 3rd glass of wine, and her senses were just starting to feel a little tipsy. After the long ending of a song, the band stopped their show for a brief break. Amber stepped towards the table with a handsome brown-haired man who was holding her little hand. "Emily, how are you looking so radiant just by sitting in the shadows of a corner?" Amber hollered out at her as she led her handsome follower to the table. "Because wine is the nectar of the gods. Blessed are those who drink it," Emily said with a smile and took a sip of her drink. "You know," the man said as he pulled the chair out for Amber to sit in, "it's a bad thing that a gorgeous doll like you ain't got no guy to treat you nice," he said towards Emily. "A couple of the boys are alright dancers. How about I fetch you one, huh, Dove?" Emily put down her glass harshly, the dim light of the dance hall glistening off the silver band around her finger. Her shimmering blue eyes trained towards him like angry spear points. "Actually," Amber interrupted before Emily could say something, "my friend is engaged." "Oh," the guy replied, "that ain't no big thing to threaten on about, just means there's plenty of time for you to change your mind." He grinned a half-crooked smile at Emily. Her fiancé is a soldier, Amber said stoutly, fighting somewhere in France. So, why don't you go and buy your pals a drink, huh? Amber's dark eyes burned deeply into the man's gaze. He tried to start an excuse, but Amber's unmoving glare caused him to get up from his seat in silence and walk away. Sorry about that, Emily, Amber started. Some guys are just low-down idiots, can't be helped. But they surely can be gotten rid of. She picked up her glass of whiskey and sipped it gently. I think I'm about finished for the night, Emily said. Already? But you're only on your third glass. I know, but I just can't stop thinking about Edwin. I miss him, and I just want to go home and read through the letters he sent me. I just want to imagine him being here. Amber eyed the soft hints of heartache that painted itself onto Emily's slender face. She nodded her head in reluctance. Very well, Amber said. I'll go and pay the tab. Then we'll be on our way for the evening. Amber got up from her seat and the band started up another slow-moving tune. Emily closed her eyes, images of Edwin passing through her mind like the silent movies in the theatre. She wanted him to be home, to be sitting across this table from her, holding her hand and looking into her soft blue eyes as they listened to the music of the band play on. I'll be home for your birthday, she could see Edwin's scribbled words saying. Neither the Huns or General Pershing will keep me away, Angel Eyes, I promise. She could hear his voice perfectly, the low drawl, the slow pace of his warm West Texas accent resounding in the inner realms of her young mind. In her eyes, Emily could feel the tears starting to swell as her thoughts were trained upon the handsome features of Edwin's face. She could see the sunlight that glistened in his bright eyes and the wavy curls that crashed through his dirty blonde hair. The masses of couples and lovers crowded the floor. Emily sat in her shadowy corner, trying to push the saddening images of her husband-to-be out of her mind. A cool breeze seemed to drift across the warm dance hall, as if a breath of winter had escaped through the exhale of some invisible god. It seemed to strike Emily directly, causing her to open her reddening eyes and cast them towards the front door. Stepping out of the swirling masses of the dance floor came a broad-shouldered and lengthy figure of a man. He wore a heavy uniform of dark wool, oddly splotched with deep stains of mud and muck. As he stepped closer to Emily's table, her young heart started to beat like a wild and silent thunder in her breast. Even before he stepped up to the edge of the chairs, Emily could see his rounded face and curled up grin. Edwin? She said softly as he got to the table. I told ya I wouldn't miss your birthday for the world, sweet Angel Eyes. He extended his right hand towards her. His palm opened, rough calluses along the bottom of his fingers, black splotches of soil stained across the tan flesh. Treat you to a dance, beautiful? His blue eyes glistened in the dim glow of the overhead lamps, and Emily took his hand with a smile just as bright. The warmth of his fingers wrapping around hers sent a stir of love through her slender body. Why didn't you write me that you were coming home? She asked him. Because sometimes, Edwin said lowly, God grants you an answered prayer. He smiled at her and started to lead her towards the dance floor. The music was like the recording of a dream, soft melodies that moved swiftly from the instruments, the huddled masses across the dance floor floating all around the two lovers. Edwin held her close, and Emily stared warmly into his eyes. Not a word was passed between them, because no words were needed. It was love, pure, passionate love. The band continued on for another few minutes, the music flowing like the gentle ripples of the face of a river. When the song faded, Emily could resist no longer. She pulled her soft lips to his, and he held her in his strong arms against the warmness of his body. A kiss like the two had never experienced before. Emily! Amber suddenly shouted behind her, and Emily slowly let loose of her lover's embrace. What in the world are you doing, girl? Kissing my husband. What else does it look like? Amber laughed at her. You must really be lit, she said, because I'm pretty sure Edwin isn't made out of empty space. What are you talking about? Emily asked, confused, and turned back to Edwin. But he was gone. He was standing right here, she said. We just finished dancing, and I kissed him. Emily's dark eyes scanned through the scattering masses, searching for her future husband in the crowds, but not seeing him anywhere. Well, I'm happy you enjoyed your wine anyhow, Amber said. He was right here, Emily exclaimed. He was in his uniform and it was all caked with mud like he just got back from the battlefields, I swear. Amber glanced around the room. There were a few men who had just sat down and started enjoying their drinks, but none of them were wearing any army uniform, and none of them were even casting a glance towards Emily. Well, I suppose there's a soldier boy here somewhere who can tell his pals about a cute drunk girl suddenly kissing him. Emily turned towards her, eyes narrowed with a hint of anger at the joke. I won't tell Edwin, Amber said, smiling. It was shortly after midnight when Emily stepped into the lobby of her apartment building. Amber followed behind her, still sometimes teasing her of the intoxicated kiss. Emily wasn't sure what happened. Edwin had been there, standing in front of her, holding her tightly and dancing lively. Their kiss was passionate, full of love and intermingled with a mixture of emotions that focused on their futures together. Had she imagined it all, gotten lost in some form of an intoxicated dream? She just didn't know. Miss Andrews, the clerk at the counter, called out to her. His dark eyes seemed heavy with weariness and grief. We received a telegraph for you, madam. It came to us via a soldier, not long after you'd left this evening. A soldier? Emily asked, surprised. Yes, ma'am, and I wanted to tell you in person. Emily and Amber stood motionless in their steps, and the clerk stepped out from behind the counter with a thin sheet of paper in his hands. He walked slowly up to Emily and handed her the note. I am very sorry, ma'am, but your fiancé was killed this morning. The messenger told me that your fiancé's unit was advancing towards a German position and was suddenly cut down by machine gun fire. Emily dropped the note to the floor, frozen in pure shock. Her eyes were opened wide, and she remembered everything that had happened that night at the dance. Edwin's coat, covered in mud, his hands stained with the soil of some field in France. Did the messenger state his name? She barely whispered, already frightfully aware of the reply. Yes, the clerk replied as he glanced back towards his ledger. It was delivered to us by a Corporal Edwin Hessel. Emily felt her knees grow weak as a surge of both sorrow and happiness flooded through her young body. Edwin had stayed true to his promise. Nothing had stopped him from returning home on her birthday that night. Not the Huns, not the generals, not even death. That kiss, that strange, mysterious, magical kiss in 1918 would always remain special to my great-grandmother for years to come. It took her a long time to get past the death of her first fiancé, Corporal Edwin Hessel, of the 90th Tough Hombres Infantry Division at the Battle of St. Mihiel in the September of 1918. Years later, in 1924, with the support of her friend Amber Lawrence and blessings from family members of both hers and Edwin Hessel, Emily Dale married a rancher from Menard, Texas, named William Shackelford. She became my great-grandmother 2 years later when she gave birth to my grandmother, and the story of Corporal Edwin Hessel has become a family legend. In the parlour of my parents' house today, there's an old roll-top desk that my great-grandfather made back during the Depression. Sitting upon it are a number of pictures of he and Emily together, but on top of the desk is a solitary photograph of just her smiling so beautifully, her eyes so alive with joy and love. Right next to Emily's photo is a telegraph. It's brown with age, despite being framed in glass, and dated September the 21st, 1918. It's a standard Western Union letterhead, its sorrowful words stamped upon it in deep black letters, and addressed to Ms. Emily Dale of apartment 45, President's Square, Lofts and Apartments, Fort Worth, Texas. I've read the same sad message my whole life now, always fascinated by how much this one thin sheet of paper changed our family forever. Sometimes though, late at night or right about twilight, I've glanced at the telegraph and would swear that I've seen the reflection of a young man's face on the glass. His eyes are friendly, a crooked West Texas grin spread across his lips, and thick waves of dirty blonde hair spill across the top of his head. Yet, every time I turn to look around me, I'm the only one there. The air around me is suddenly cool, like the wintry breath of some exhale of an invisible being.